Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Addict's Advocate. I am your host, Dusty Dean, and it is my pleasure to welcome to the show Bailey. How are you, Bailey?
Hi, I'm doing so well. Thank you so much for having me on here today.
Hey, I appreciate you spending the time on a Friday here talking about all things addiction and recovery. Our journeys, our sobriety journeys, what we've learned, how we got to this point in our lives, right? What are the benefits of living a sober lifestyle? And I met you through the power of TikTok. What really intrigued me about you is that I know that you seem to have a passion for running and exercise, right? And I think that's obviously an important part of sobriety and recovery. It's taking care of ourselves again. In a way that we thought that we were maybe before in our addiction, but now let's truly take care of ourselves. Exercise and fitness are so important. Even when we find that we just start removing those things that are maybe stimulating us or causing us to be depressed, or depressing us, and we start getting healthier foods in our bodies, right? We're getting the vitamins, the minerals we need. We start moving, getting the blood flowing, and it's amazing what that can do for us. And a lot of people attest to just the power of managing mental health problems with exercise, right? Let alone addiction
hmm
recovery. Because I think it's all interlaced. At the end of the day, right? We're not simple beings. We're complex. And recovery is personal. So I want to be, I try to use this podcast as a means to provide people with every way that they could get to sobriety, every way that's possible, because we do get pigeonholed sometimes in our thinking. And even those that are maybe from the outside looking in on somebody in addiction, they're going, hey, how do I help this person? Well, I can take them to an AA meeting. Well, but if that's just it, people are gonna be like, well, what else is there? What else can I do? And or maybe I've tried that and it's failed me. I appreciate you spending a Friday with me. The other thing that was fascinating to me when I first came across your feed was that you seemed extremely young, and you just seemed like you're beaming and glowing. And I thought to myself, there wouldn't be one soul that would walk by you on a city street and would ever think that you had an addiction problem. And that's important to remember, that addiction doesn't discriminate, and addiction has many different faces. I'm a face of it. And I want to get away from being so concerned about scary words like addict or addiction, and get ourselves to a place of healing, a place of love, a place of compassion, a place of growth, and a place of just living our best lives. At the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. We're all here for a limited time. Let's try not to waste it, right? Let's try not to waste it. I
Yeah.
appreciate you, Bailey. Please, I know all that probably resonated with you. We talked a little bit before that we started in the studio today, but I'm really curious to know, because I don't really know your backstory at all on how you've gotten to this point in your life. Please share with us.
Yeah, I'm actually 25. I got sober when I was 23. I decided to go to a residential rehab. I was battling addiction probably since the age of 20. But at first I didn't really realize what I was going through. I just thought I really liked to drink. So it was when people started to notice my drinking habits, and my therapist, my doctor, my psychiatrist had all brought up rehab was something that I should probably look into. But one day my therapist sat me down and said, it's time to go to rehab. And I was 23 at the time, bawling. I was so scared because what 23-year-old goes to rehab? And spoiler alert, a lot of 23-year-olds go to rehab. So, yeah, but I'm 25. I'm from Utah. I love to run. And running's always been a part of me, even in my addiction. So, that was kind of an outlet for me. And I think running made me realize that, or not realize, but think that I wasn't the alcoholic that I was. But like you were saying, it does not discriminate. My image of an alcoholic before I realized I was someone experiencing homelessness under a bridge, drinking out of a paper bag. And obviously, I don't think either of us are those, but we are definitely still addicted, or were addicted.
Yeah, no, it's I agree with you. I've met so many fascinating people, so many intelligent people, loving, caring people of all ages and ranges and success levels that you sit there and you just go, wow, and that's again, we're a growing and evolving society. We should continue to educate and learn and grow. And one of the biggest reasons that I think I've been doing this as well is that I wanted it to if by serendipity, right, if there's a divine intervention, then I get the people that are maybe, the normies that don't understand it. They hear something that
Hmm.
might resonate with them as well, right? And it also just opens up their heart a little bit more versus basically saying, you know, that guilt and shame, motivation, right, to help, somebody get sober doesn't work, right? We know it doesn't work. We've been doing that to ourselves as long as we've been. What makes you think that anybody else telling us is going to make it any easier, right?
Yeah.
Um, but one of the things that I was interested, what sort of relapsing triggers do you have? What where's your concerns at right now?
So when I was in active addiction, I did a lot of drinking and driving, which is not something
Mm,
that I've ever been proud of. So long trips really trigger me. When I drive by a liquor store, I check the time. The liquor store hours here are 11 to 7. So if it's within that hour range, always kind of think like, oh, I could go get alcohol right now. And just like, normal uh, life altering events like breakups, anything like that. I posted a video on my TikTok about a breakup I was going through, and that was the video. I was so embarrassed, but it actually helped so many people. I think it has like 27,000 likes, but I was so embarrassed because I was bawling, but so many people resonated with it because they are sober going through life too, and I'm not alone. So, just drives, normal hours of the day, and those life-changing events.
mm, interesting. Um, yeah, and again, right, I think it's our habits. I mean, I was guilty of just simply a sunflower seed habit if I was driving. It was what you
Hmm.
did, right? I as an addict, right, very much oral fixations. I kind of gravitate towards. It all sounds fine and dandy, getting sober and living this fantastic life, but it's the day by day, the minute by minute, the hour by hour that gets us. What's important
Hmm.
is the community. Number one, what does that look like for you?
Um, for the first year of my sobriety journey, I decided to go to AA. And where I live, it's a very small town. There's not many young people. So I didn't really find myself connecting with them. I could relate to their stories, but it was really hard to be on that level where I felt like I could call them and, talk to them about my life when they probably haven't been through a breakup in how many years, So it's like really hard for me. But my family doesn't drink. I was the only one in my family that drank, and I just so happened to develop into an alcoholic. So they've been an amazing support to me. And honestly, you get sober for yourself first, but I stay sober for them because they deserve me to be a better daughter and sister, all of these things. So that is probably my main motivation. And Arlo right here, he keeps me sober. But yeah, just those family members really, really I just stay sober for them and myself.
Absolutely. It's one of the things that was profound. I had heard somebody in recovery with me that had made the statement. She recognized she needed help when she was transferring her pain to those that she loved.
Mm.
Um, you talk about being in therapy, right? And your therapist basically recognizing you. What was, just out of curiosity, if you want to share the motivation for therapy to begin with?
Yeah, I have been dealing on and off with depression for probably about 10 years.
Okay.
So I just wanted to kind of get my foot on the ground. I had actually just recently moved back to my hometown, and I decided to get a therapist back here. And, she would obviously realize that I was showing up drunk, even though I'd lie straight to her face and say, no, I haven't had a drink today at 10 a.m. Not me. But I was just struggling, and she really helped. Honestly, she had changed my life. So I'm so grateful for her.
Wonderful, wonderful. I appreciate that. I've had a couple very, very, very severe enough depressive episodes that I've gone, you know what, I need to get help. It was interesting is that it wasn't always the manic side of it that drove me to want to get help. It was the depressive side.
Hmm.
Um, and but yet the irony is that in the manic side is when I'd have most of my arguments with my family and things like that, right? My energy was just on a different frequency, right? And
Hmm.
that was kind of just, and so, and I battled with it for a long time, I guess, with, with, first of all, just acceptance, right? Fortunately, it's okay. Don't even worry about it. It's all
Sorry.
good. It's all good. Adds a little spice to the podcast. Yeah, it's all fun. I think that, because a lot of people believe nowadays that, Gabor Monte, I don't know if you're familiar with that person. He
Hmm.
says, I don't want to hear about your addiction. I want to hear about your pain. Right. A
Yeah.
lot of people believe that there's trauma, right? There's trauma basically that's rooting in a lot of addiction from childhood time. Is there anything that do you feel like drove it? It's okay. Is there anything that you feel like drove it? Other than just obviously maybe the alcohol induction maybe was causing some of the. I mean, what was the depressive? Do you think it was just purely chemical imbalance?
I do.
Okay.
I don't think I've had like insane amounts of trauma, which is very interesting because in
Okay.
therapy they always talk about like childhood trauma and
Right.
stuff like that. Oh my gosh. I am
Oh,
so sorry.
you're fine. Having a good time. Wants to be the center of
He is.
attention, huh?
He is. So I didn't, I mean, there's that trauma that you have when you are drinking as well.
Right.
And
Yeah.
not that I
Yeah.
remember all of it, which, kind of still makes me think like what happened during those nights that I was not fully there. It really scares me. But I think that was another reason that I was really struggling because I couldn't piece together what my life was like during this time. It was just so either I was there or I was not there.
Very fragmented, right?
Hmm.
Um, I tell people if addiction showed you what it was capable of when you're at the end of it, recognizing you need help, if it showed that to you at the beginning of when you first had those drinks, I mean, there'd be so fewer addicts, in this world
Hmm.
because that's the thing is it just has this way of just ultimately integrating itself into your life to where it ultimately becomes I have to instead of hey, let's go just for fun have one. It becomes this crutch. It becomes it becomes its own chemical imbalancer, obviously mood destabilizer. Um,
Hmm.
and if we're already displaced to kind of be that way as well, one of the things that I recognized for myself when I was my in my late teens was that I was kind of melancholic at times, and that's what kind of ultimately got me. And then as time went on, then recognizing the depressive episode when it took place at post fact, that's kind of basically what I was dealing with and then have it hit again. But
Hmm.
some of that was definitely experiential depressive episodes, post traumatic events in my life too. Right.
Hmm.
Experienced a lot of death throughout my life as a kid and growing up. So a lot of trauma in that life I had, and it didn't stop. I mean, even into my adulthood and everything else. So it was always, nervous system kind of starts getting fried if every 3 to 5 years, somebody you love is dropping,
Hmm.
and that can be, that's obviously, it just definitely changes the flight fight response, I think, in our bodies. It changes the way that we're on guard. It kind of just almost in a sense short circuits us. It can, right? And so
Yeah.
now we're uncomfortable in our own skin. So what do? We reach for something that's going to make us comfortable. We can't sit through it. We can't, and that's one of the difficult things about getting sober initially. It's so I'm an advocate of medically assisted detox. I went into a 30-day inpatient. Love those people. Still talk to them all. But I also recognize that that wasn't going to be it. And and it was funny because I recognize also that's not a motivator for people that feel like they're limited on their time to do the things that they need to do in their lives to get better. So a lot of
Hmm.
people out there are gonna go, I can give you 30 days, but I can't give you 90. You know, I definitely can't give you 6 months, right? But I can give you 30 days to make myself better. You better do a good job because otherwise I'll just sit there and say it didn't stick and go back to my ways and continue to destroy
Hmm.
myself. Thoughts, perspective?
Yeah, I totally agree. Honestly, like when I first went into rehab, I'm 25. that's a lot of years left in my life that I have to stay sober.
Right.
And throughout it, I was like, I'm not staying sober for the rest of my life. Um,
Right.
I was very unhappy. I didn't see the reason to stay sober. But now, as I've gone along and gone down the path of sobriety, I've really been happy. I've like changed 180, but yeah, I was not planning to stay sober for the rest of my life, but now I honestly don't imagine a day drinking.
I so you were 2023, you said, right? You got sober?
Yes.
What
Oh,
month?
2024,
20,
but I was 23.
oh, you were 23. You were 23 and 24.
Hmm.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've definitely have picked up on and just in the endurance of being over, I'm over 2 years now, right? I'm like 2 years, 3 months, basically. Thank
Congratulations.
you. Is that there is change in that 6 months to 2 years. It's so huge that the trying to muscle through those nights when you want to so bad versus, just the habits just no longer, it's maybe a glint every once in a while, but it doesn't grab a hold of you and ruin potentially a half of a day, right? And just trying to
Yes.
maintain it. And that's the thing that people need to have hope for, is that it does get better every day. It gets better.
Hmm.
So endure it. Because I deal with an aftercare program that's all associated with my intensive outpatient program. And it's basically just us reconnecting every week. Just talk about how our weeks are,
Awesome.
and it's very it's very informal, but basically talking about how the addiction wants to creep itself back and forth into our lives. And I think that that's huge because we all empathize with that feeling, especially when you're at different levels. Again, that's the power of the meeting, right? Is getting together and finding those people that you go, yeah, they get exactly what I'm going through.
Hmm.
The beautiful thing too is that we have the power of the internet. They're doing AA meetings remotely now through Zoom and stuff.
Hmm.
I know that that still sometimes feels a little impersonal, and I get it. I mean, I prefer to be face to face with people, right? It just gives me something to do,
Yes.
the friendships are much richer than they were when the only reasons why you were friends is that you were associated with drinking together, and um, but it's fascinating that you had said the thing about trauma when you're drinking, because that's the other thing that gets scary in the addiction is how progressive that can get. Um,
Yes.
and a lot of people have a lot of control over it for a period of time, but that's the key, is that it's a period of time.
Hmm.
I'd gone through 2 6 year stints where I wasn't drinking at all. And each time it basically came back and was a descent into the addiction that much quicker.
Hmm.
The physiological and psychological changes were that much more aggressive. Because again, I'm also just older, right? Um, it's something that I warn people about. It's merciless. It is merciless. There was
Hmm.
a great quote I came across the other day. It said, you're going to get to a point where you think you beat this thing. And that's when you put your guard down. And that's when it comes at you with all of its vengeance and will
Hmm.
remind you that you need to respect this thing. And that's what happened to me both times. I was like, I feel like, I've got control of it. I can do this again. I can have that drink on the weekend and not feel guilty about it and use my whole, go free the whole week, you know? But what ends up happening is it all of a sudden becomes an agenda, right? It becomes okay, well, I didn't drink, I see, look how good I did. So now this weekend, I'm going to have one on Friday again.
Yep.
And
Hmm.
then all of a sudden now I'm going to start ruminating on Monday through Friday. So maybe Friday night it gives me permission now to go have a cocktail because look how good I did,
Yes.
and then the guard is down, and then you've descended, and then now all of a sudden you cannot drive home from work without stopping at the liquor store and getting yourself
Hmm.
inebriated every night, right? Because you're dosing for effect, right? That's what ends up happening. I'm just
Yeah.
I'm just going until. So it was never about quantity; it was about reason. Are you exclusively on TikTok right now?
Um, I post a little bit on Instagram. It's more kind of just personal stuff, but I
Okay,
would say sobriety is fully my TikTok.
okay, cool. I'll make sure that we get the all that good information up for this conversation for you.
Cool.
Um, your friend group. You said obviously you're the whole time that you've been sober, you've been in the back in town.
Yeah, and it's a very small town, as I said before, so I don't have many friends. Definitely my family are my best friends.
Okay.
I have a sister that's 2 years older than me, and we get along really well. My other sister is about 6 or 7 years older than me, and she
Okay.
doesn't live here, but we still get along really well. And I just love spending my time with them when I'm not with them. And when I'm on my week off, I like to go up to Ogden, and I have a friend group up there who is very supportive of my sobriety. And, they may drink, but they do not let me drink. They are 100% supportive. One time we were at the bar and I went to go hold a friend's drink just to hold it for them. They were going to the bathroom, and my friend slapped it out of my hand and said, "No, you don't touch that." So I'm
That's good.
very blessed with amazing friends. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. It's interesting because my daughter is in college right now, and she her perspective on politics, her perspective on a lot of these things as well. I mean, there's definitely a vein that's running through society that's definitely changed. Do you think that addiction is a lack of self will or self control?
Um, I mean, I think there's a component of it, but
Okay.
not in a bad way. I don't mean that in any sort of bad way. Um, but I just can't help myself. And I like the way it makes me feel. Um, and it's not that I wanted to drink every day. I needed to drink every day. It's what I had to do to survive and keep myself functioning. It was, looking back, terrible. But I just had to do what I needed to do.
That's what it does. It just slips into our life, and from the consequences of drinking, you end up becoming this awareness, and then you have yourself, kind of your own crisis. What am I going to do about it? I can
Hmm.
succumb to it. Were you open and honest with family as well? Like when your therapist is like, "Hey, you know what? We need to go get you inpatient." I mean, did you?
Yeah, so kind of going back, I was not always honest.
Hmm.
I would lie to my family, as we do to kind of protect ourselves and our addictions. Um, my therapist had actually called me and said, "Bring your mom in this next session. I want to have a group session with you."
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh, yeah, how fun." And that's when she dropped the bomb on me and said, "It's time for you to go to rehab." So from that point on, I was very honest with my family that same night. I got all my siblings on a phone call and I said, "Hey, I just want to let you guys know that I'm going to go to rehab in about 2 weeks." And they were all very supportive. But I truly loved my time in rehab. I spent 47 days there in South Ogden, Utah. It was an amazing facility, amazing food. Not that that matters, but when you're trying to get sober, healthy lifestyle changes really do make that change and like really make it that much better. We had a gym that we could go to once a day. But the one thing that's really stuck with me is how shame is an emotion that you cannot get past. You need to let go of shame. And, guilt we can work with, but shame is something that you're never going to let go until you fully realize what you've done wrong and all the people you've wronged. So, I've been trying to turn my shame into guilt still. I always have those shameful moments that I remember, but I just have to be very open and honest with myself and say that this is not who I am anymore. There's no reason to hold on to that. And it's just not worth it to have that shameful feeling anymore. So I've really been working at turning it into guilt because I can work with that a little bit more.
I appreciate that. I think that's important. I think it is in our healing, right? We have to hold ourselves accountable for the damage that we've done. Um,
Hmm.
and I knew
Hmm.
for the most part it was already laid out there, but what was missing was my perspective through it all, right?
Hmm.
So I was going to be willing to sit there and just kind of divulge it. I had a lot of very very cleansing moments, in addressing trauma when I was in 30 day. Doing it medically assisted was huge for me because I knew that I was dealing with mental health issues that I needed to get some rectification on. I had tried going down an antidepressant route. It wasn't working the first go around. It freaked me out with an allergic reaction. So I was always just working on it myself. And so what I proceeded to do is I just continued to try to gain that knowledge, right? Just continue to build the knowledge of what this is going on within us, right? The addiction, the psychology behind it, any mental health. Obviously, nutrition is huge.
Hmm.
I appreciate what you said there because had a great chef at where I was at. I
Yeah.
was at Silicon Valley Recovery here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and they were phenomenal, great food, great personnel, and it was just a diverse experience that touched on so many realities of what happened to you, right? I mean, we don't
Hmm.
all willfully say, "Yeah, sign me up for this program." We're not.
Yeah.
I want to be underneath a bridge, in a tent, addicted to something that I can't get off of. I know people don't inherently want to be that way. It ends up
No.
happening, and they end up getting hijacked by their own brains, right? The homeless have the double disadvantage of, again, like you're saying, without the nutrition, right? Because they don't have the money to feed themselves properly, their
Hmm.
malnourishment coupled with the drug use is just it's a battlefield in their brain, right?
Yes.
There cannot be any clarity. Forgiving ourselves. We got to forgive ourselves, and we have to be able to sit there and go, you know what? No, I can evolve. I can evolve as a
Hmm.
human being. I can learn from my mistakes. I can teach others to help them protect themselves from the potential pitfalls of what I've experienced. Um, and yeah, I have to take the accountability for my actions. Go and confess. Go and confess what you did
Hmm.
because you're in your clarity. Go and confess. Um, and and put it behind you. Right.
Yeah.
Go through it. Right. Go through it. Don't try to
Yes.
sidestep it. Go through it.
Yes, exactly.
Um, I also appreciate the honesty and the lying. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. It's also work to try to keep this whole life raveled, this double life that we're living. It's
Yeah,
exhausting,
it really is.
and it almost just fuels the anxiety of it all, right? The addiction.
Yeah, I would hide a bottle of vodka in my bed and my parents would find it. I'd be like, "Oh, that's from weeks ago," when I literally just went to the liquor store the night before.
Yeah,
And when people realize what you're going through, they're not dumb. You think you're fooling them, but they are. I mean, at least my parents were very
oh
aware
yeah,
of what I was going through. So, I've had to make a lot of amends to them, but it was exhausting. Like getting out of work at lunch so I could hurry and go to the liquor store because the time I was off, it was going to be closed. So it's just so
yeah,
exhausting to have to go through that every day.
right, yeah.
Hmm.
Um, it's interesting. My wife this morning, she wakes up. She goes, "I had another drinking dream of you." And I'm like, what? So what's crazy is that, I'm 2 years, 3 months now. And I think she's had maybe, so the irony is that she had one like the other night. And we're like, what?
Hmm.
And she was like so pissed, right? She woke up kind of just pissed and mad at me, right? And I get it. I remember what I did, even as much as I remember what I did to her, this poor woman.
Hmm.
And, and so it was just kind of odd to us. We're like two in just like the last week. It's been over 2 years, and yet she never really had any of them like that before. I was having constantly drinking dreams, in sobriety, right, dealing with
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
But I think she had like maybe one before, and so it was just kind of odd. I'm like, I wonder what's instigating that. I wonder what's going on subconsciously in her. I'm like, are you concerned? Because as I step away further and further from it, that's ultimately what led me to my relapses. Because I just see, I've got this, right? I've got,
Yeah,
yeah. The only reason why you got it is because you're not doing it at all. That's the only way this works, right?
exactly.
So, what do you think are the three biggest mistakes that would lead somebody to relapse?
I've always been told, or not been told, but I've always learned that it's an emotional relapse. Yeah, like what you're
Hmm.
saying, you have to let your guard down once you feel like you're doing fine. And I've also gone through that. I thought that I was okay to drink. I hadn't drank in a month. I wasn't exactly trying to get sober at this point in my life, but I had a car accident. I was driving drunk and I tried to commit suicide.
Oh my goodness.
And so I got sober after that for about a month. But I was like, oh, yeah, I haven't drank in a month. I'm ready to go. And I would convince myself that I was okay. So I think an emotional relapse is the first one. Second one is when you're physically going to the store, when you're driving there and you're making that choice, like, you know what, I'm going to do this right now. And then the third one is when you crack that bottle open and, you know, you smell it, you take the first sip, whatever you do. But I would say those are the three.
Yeah, I like your perspective on this. I was not expecting this type of an answer, to be honest with you. Um, huh. People, places, things. Right?
Yep.
Right?
Very,
People,
very basic way. Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, for me, it's things.
Hmm.
And those things are usually stressors, right?
Yeah.
Stressors will ultimately start, making me uncomfortable, make me want to get, whatever I've got to deal with, just done and over with, out of the way. But if it's stressful long enough of a time period, the nervous system, remembers, right, and wants to react. And even though it's been a while for me, right, I I appreciate this feeling that people get from, even though they don't drink, their body still gives them hangover feelings from it,
Mm.
right? And
Hmm.
that's something that, again, that's really crucial during this first 2 years of sobriety, to try to get, you got to muscle through that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, because yeah, I mean, I could go to a bar. I mean, not that I do. I mean, but if it was, but, if some weird random reason somebody wanted me to meet them at a bar, even though it would never happen, it doesn't bother me. I go to restaurants. People could be drinking around me. None of those things happen. None of those things cause me issues. Driving through a snowstorm, wanting to drink after that. Oh, you better believe it, right?
Whew.
Um,
Yeah.
and so things like that are what get me. So, but I announce it now to the world. I announce it to my world that knows that I've got this ism, if you will, this thing inside of me that gives me this response whenever this happens to me, and say, hey, I'm muscling through it. I'm going through it. I'm not going to go and do what I used to do, but I just want you to be
Hmm.
aware that it might have me on edge, maybe mentally, right? And it's not, if I'm snappy or something, it's not intended towards you. I'm just kind of trying to muscle through this, right? Because in that state, we want to isolate. And that's when we need to make sure that we have our partners in crime that are helping us, muscle through this together. In regards to the aspect of, this disease question, do you think it is a disease?
I do. I wholeheartedly think it was a disease.
Okay.
I remember this one video I saw about addiction, and this was years ago, probably in like seventh grade, or maybe even sixth grade when we did Dare.
Mm-hmm.
But it's this like little duck, and he finds something on the ground and he drinks it up, and then he walks a little bit more and he keeps finding this stuff, and eventually he can't find it anymore, and he's very low and down on himself because of it. I think this is kind of how it goes. It's been a long
Yeah,
time since I've seen it. Do you know what I'm talking
I
about?
do. I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So I saw that when I was younger, and I was like, you know what? I don't think that this is a choice for anyone. I mean, it wasn't a choice for me. It just so happened to develop into what it was. But no one asked to get cancer, diabetes,
Right.
anything like that,
Right.
So I didn't ask for alcoholism, but I still have it. So I do wholeheartedly think it is a disease.
Yeah. I do too. In talking, there's a great woman on YouTube, Dr. Nicole Labor. Um, got to check her out. She's got like an hour long kind of a keynote speech on addiction, that
Hmm.
she gives. And I think it's some Washington University, and she just breaks down the biology of it. in the process of that first, 6 months or so of sobriety, were you dealing with anhedonia at all? That feeling where like nothing was really giving you any sort of pleasure? Were you locked up in that at all?
I feel like I was running. I was very motivated to run out of rehab.
Okay.
So, that gave me some sort of joy. And I really am grateful for that because I would hate to just be like numb, which is kind of how I felt the first 45 days when I was in rehab and
Yeah.
sobriety. I was just kind of numb.
Yeah.
Um, happy when I got to see my family, but I was also by myself with
Yeah.
strangers, but that eventually developed into friends. But I think those 6 months would have been very long for me if I did not have running.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I mean, so you were pretty short lived as far as the just the kind of the joylessness of it all, just kind of the rebalancing front end.
Hmm.
I yeah, and different people have different responses, and I don't know if that's an attribute, if it's an attribute to. It's probably an attribute to so many things, right? Obviously, current mental health
Yeah.
conditions, right? How long somebody's maybe managed the addiction. I any thoughts of hope for those that are your peers out there in the world that are in their 20s that maybe are recklessly partying way too much and need to take a step back.
Yeah, you never realize how deep you are in addiction until it slaps you in the face. So, just be cautious and be aware of what you're doing, how often you're doing it. I never thought that I was an alcoholic just because I didn't drink every day, but an alcoholic is defined as someone who can't control their drinking. It doesn't matter how often they drink. And when I was in AA, I actually had a woman say that I drink once a month, but when I drink until I cannot walk. And I was so inspired by that because I was the same until I actually had to start drinking every day. But you're also not alone. There are so many people out there going through what you're going through. And that's why I love TikTok. I've been in so many, um, videos, and gotten so many opportunities. But I also really appreciate the people that reach out to me and just ask me a question about sobriety. And, one thing I would also say is if you're questioning your drinking, I hate to tell you, but you're probably an alcoholic or you have a drinking problem. But there are so many resources out there. Even in my small town, we have some resources. So if you are questioning it, reach out to me, reach out to Dusty, reach out to, anyone. There are people to help you here.
Well said, Bailey. Absolutely well said. This has been a blast. I appreciate your time. I we have to get you back on the show here maybe in a year and hear more about the evolution of Bailey.
I would love that.
Yeah, for sure. And well, yeah, we have to collaborate on some things, and maybe I'll pop you out a question or two to get your perspective, and maybe you can maybe post on it or something.
Yeah, I think that's a great
Well,
idea.
yeah, it's this is I try to keep myself a consummate learner in this environment, right? I'm always inspired by so many different people and their approaches, what's worked for them, and there are people in this world that will approach it from a very militaristic perspective, right? And there are those that need to learn it that way, right?
Hmm.
There are those that need to get in their feels and get into the trauma and the psychology of their life and their experiences and want to vent those things out in order to get
Hmm.
their sobriety on the true path towards, to a good place. There are people that understand that part of that way too.
Yeah.
And so, and I thank God because with social media having all the negatives that it can be portrayed as long as you stay in your lane and you're looking for help, there are so many warriors out there that are positively just open arms, and that's I thank God for them. Everybody that
Hmm.
I've interfaced with from day one, I'm like, I mean, I literally was in tears, here I am this old and feel like I'd had with all the struggles in my life, I've been able to tackle just about every one of them, but this thing keeps on being elusive,
Hmm.
and you get caught up in this, especially as a man, right? I get caught up in this, are you good enough? Are you strong enough? And a lot of that can be, how
Hmm.
you were raised, the environments, not to say good, bad, or indifferent, but we do the best that we can, especially when we're raising each other. And we all have our own, battles that we're dealing with, and we don't always see everything that we need to see.
Hmm.
But I think that the love continues to expand in that world of understanding of sobriety, addiction, um, and the wickedness in which this thing just destroys people,
Hmm.
and it doesn't need to. So, um,
No, it doesn't.
Baelie, you are awesome. Keep up the great work out there in Utah. In the couple degrees of separation, my daughter's boyfriend goes to Weber State.
That's where I went.
So there you go. How about that? Is that ironic or what? So
Wildcats.
yeah, there you go. So anyway, yeah, small world, right? Small world.
Really.
Yeah. So, but you take care, okay, and have a great, wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate this opportunity that you've given me. I hope you have a great day as well.
Take care.
You too.